Hey, welcome everyone to the Production Pros Power Hour. Well, I promised to show you everything about green screens, which means we'll be here until, until England play their game in Mexico on Monday night, I think. No, maybe we'll keep it down to a little bit shorter than that. Because when it comes to green screens and virtual backgrounds, as soon as you start looking into it, there is just so much to discuss, so much to consider, so much to cover. So let's try and get the basics in an hour. Is this a real background? Well, I can only prove by moving one of the lights, can't I? So it probably is real. And I love it. I really love it. I should love it. It took me like 3 weeks, I think, to play around with it and get the paint working. And I think there's even a show of Test Kitchen where I was actually painting the wall in the middle of the show. But what happens when you have more content, more shows? When you have a feeling that one studio stage is not enough, what do? Well, this is where things get tricky, because you can only build one stage in one area. Taking them down and changing them around is really hard work. So what do? Oh, we all know what we do. We cheat. We go into the world of virtual backgrounds and green screens and all stuff like that. So let's see how the world of green screens works with a bit of a slideshow that I've created for you today. Let's look beyond our green screens. When we start, we have, I suppose, one studio, one camera, one background, one layout, one show. But we all create lots of shows in lots of different worlds, in lots of different environments. Even if we're representing just one company, there is still a reason why you want to use multiple shows. So what can we do? Well, let's think about it. One studio is not going to produce the entire framework for us. We need to be able to divide our studio up into multiple things, which we can't do. We need some magic. We need something to make that happen. We need something to make the back behind me disappear and put something else in its place. And that's when we talk about the traditional green screen. And it's really quite easy. What we want to do is we want to separate the presenter from the background so we can replace the background. And the usual way of doing that is to use a green screen. So behind me, I will just have the color green, because then the math works. Just make every green pixel transparent. Put a new background in, and it's all done. There we are. Mike, we're finished. We've solved it all in 5 minutes.
No, we haven't. Continue.
No, we haven't. You're right, mate. We haven't at all. Because the question comes, how are you going to do that? Because there are a lot of issues. So let's try and find my slide deck button controller, which is not on a long enough cable, so it's over down there. That's today's trouble we have with the show. How are we going to remove our color? And this is where life becomes a little bit tricky. So trying to keep this in a structure, I've got some notes here because we'll start at the top and we'll work down the list of things we can do. We can use a app. Now, you might have one in your phone. You might have one in your video conferencing software, like I have here. And you might have one somewhere else. You might have one in an app. You might be using Mimo Live or vMix. And these products can all find all the green pixels and make them transparent. So that's it then. They all work fine. There we are, Mike. Done it in 10 minutes. But there's a problem.
They're still not done.
Yeah. There's a problem. All around the edges. That's the problem. Because the green pixels, when they get close to the human, all the objects that you want to leave on the stage, so famously my chair with holes in it, this is where we have a problem because the pixels don't always line up. So you get some pixels which are half green and half the person you want to leave on the screen. And we quite often call that spill. And it's at that point that you can tell the quality of your device that's removing the green. That's where all the processing is needed. It's also a problem if the green isn't a really uniform green and your background has slightly lighter and slightly darker versions of green. That causes a problem because then the software or whatever's taking the green away needs to work on a range of green rather than just one specific green color. This is why professional studios go to extreme lengths to make sure their green screen is exactly the same green everywhere, because it's much easier, even though it's a lot of trouble, it's still much easier to get the green as perfect as possible than it is to try and get some app, software, or equipment after the fact to get that green removed from the background when it's not perfect as possible. So removing the color is a challenge. And so the first problem is, how are you going to detect the subject? In a real world, the answer is it's the stuff that's not green, guys. It's as easy as that, isn't it? Well, it isn't. Because of that edge effect, there is a problem. And there are effectively two ways that any system's going to tackle this. It's going to tackle it with math, or it's going to tackle it with logic. And when I say logic, everybody's going to claim AI, but in a lot of cases, actually, it's not really AI as you think it's AI, because you can't ask Claude, however efficient and how much you pay Uncle Claude, you can't ask Claude to redraw your images at 60 frames a second, taking out your green screen. It's not quick enough. So it's not AI as a prompt as you think of it. It could do a video because it's got all the time in the world to process it all. But in real time, you need some either math or logic or a combination of the two. The math will be looking at the pixel colors and taking them out. The math will then need to understand how it's going to do with this spill, the area, the edges, because that's what makes things good or bad. Because quite often, as I said, a pixel can be green, but it can also be influenced by overlapping the subject as well. So how do you process that? And logically, you can use some AI-like intelligence to try and determine what is the background, what is the foreground. And that's why there are a lot of programs out there at the lower level which will do a blur when you don't even have a green screen. But they've still got to try and use logic to work out what's you and what's the background. And if I use a blur, will my chair be seen as the background or the foreground? Depends on the logic of the system. So detecting the subject is the biggest challenge. The easy bit after that is you just build a background in behind. And the background can be whatever you want it to be, depending on the software you're using. It could be just a straight image. It could be a video. It could be, you know, a video of something outside, and so you've got some grass moving in the wind. It could be a loop video. That's fine. It could be content from somewhere else. I could pick up Mike and on a green screen. He was scared I was going to do that today. He looks really nice though, just in case I needed him. And I could drop him onto my background. And if I got a green screen system working in some way, I could do that. So the background is very open. You can do anything you like, as long as you can put somebody in. So in a physical world, we go from a studio setup to a green screen. That's what we do. And whether we use simple applications or use complicated applications, that's effectively what we're going to do. So let's talk about the app-based backgrounds to start with. You can, in almost every video package I can think of, including Zoom, you can say you've got a green screen and the software will do its best to remove the screen. It's available in, I think every software product I looked at, including OBS, for those who are now shouting, what about OBS? Including OBS, there is the ability to take a green screen away. But all of those do it in software. So the quality of the green screen often has as much to do with the quality of the machine you're using as the software. Because if you have a budget-friendly, low-cost laptop and you start waving your hands around and you get motion blur at 30 frames a second, your poor little low-powered, budget-friendly laptop could have a medium nightmare in trying to make sense of which bit was your hand in motion blur and which was the background. And that's why in a lot of those apps, people use it, move around fast, and their hands start disappearing because the software just can't keep up. It can't process the logic quick enough. So app-based backgrounds at that level are only okay if you move around slowly and you have less complicated backgrounds. Backgrounds like that will not work very well with my chair because my chair has holes in it. And if I move my chair, what you see through those holes changes, and the software programs can't then tell whether it should be the background or it should be actually seen. And whether you do a blur or you do a green screen, when of course all the little holes all show a bit of green through, that gets to be a problem. So app-based programs are difficult. Now, okay, when you go to the next level up and we start using Mimo Live and vMix and all those pieces of software, they have more powerful algorithms than you'll get in your app. If you've got a webcam app and it's got a green screen controller, again, that's the lower level. But when you go up to products like Mimo Live and vMix and OBS, and I can hear you all shouting out the names of your favorite programs too, they have a bit more processing. They've probably got a bit more logic, and they're looking to spend a bit more processing power in making the green screen work for you. But they're still going to be limited, probably as much by the machine that you're running them on as their own software, because they've still got to keep up to the 30 frames a second you're running. And they won't be happy if you you know, if you're running faster, a 4K at 60 frames, that's even more. I mean, that's just so much more graphics for them to process. They will really, 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 really have problems with that. So if you are going to do green screens with those lower apps, you need to keep to a lower frame rate. You need to keep to a lower resolution. Otherwise, your poor app just doesn't have a chance. App-based backgrounds, though, are probably, for all of us, the most used. And they're the ones that tend to be running in most situations. And most users are using them. And the quality is often not perfect. And I'm afraid that's the price you have to pay for not taking the effort to build a system that works. And don't worry, because Mike's going to come on and he's going to tell us everything you need to know about what makes it work. But before he does, let's just take the next level up. This is what the products that are at the mid-level, the vMixes, the VizRTs. With respect, I don't think the Mimo Lives and the OBSs really have the definition to do it to this level. So these are software apps, but they're expected now to be running on, what should we say, more professional hardware, more higher spec equipment that can really process the graphics at a decent lick. And because they are processing at a higher level of resolution, of refresh, and they've got more processing power, they can have more controls that help you with, well, I'll say the edge cases. So the spill and the boundary between the person and the green screen. They can have more options to allow you to tweak the system. They can have more options to tweak how good the green screen is behind you and how well they can cover that up for you. And that software keying is the sort of thing which is used by a lot of people in a lot of processing, but there is also another level up from that. And that's if we talk about hardware keying. Now, hardware keying, I'll give you a clue. Mike's going to like hardware keying because, like me, we always worry about software apps that don't have the horsepower in the machine they're running in to do what they want to do. The hardware can let them down. The nice thing about hardware keying is you've got a dedicated box to that particular problem. It's never going to do anything else. It's only going to do that problem. So it is optimized for the job in question. And therefore, it does a better job, but it also is more reliable at doing that better job because it's not going to be installed on different machines. It's on its own dedicated hardware. And that, for me, is when you start to get to the pro level. Now, of course, there are different ranges of dedicated hardware they may be using. So I'm not saying just because it's dedicated hardware, it's going to be perfect. But what I am saying is if you have a dedicated box to do the job, it will be more reliable over the long term in producing your green screen. And when I say dedicated box, that also means what I call tongue-in-cheek, the cheats, who are using a Microsoft box or an Apple box. They're using a standard piece of hardware equipment, but they're only allowing you to put their app on it, and they're blocking all their other apps from being used. So you can't install your favorite game onto the same box because it's dedicated to that. In theory, those boxes should again be considered hardware keying because the whole system is dedicated to that job and doing nothing else. And so, talking about being dedicated to his job, let's see what our expert from Canada, who at the time of this recording are still in the football thinks of the various levels that we've talked about for controlling your green screens. He's not green around the grills. He's always perfect and very nice in a very good red today. Hello, Mike Latter. How are you today? You're silent. Okay. Well, that's probably right. You're lost for words.
I'm lost for words and I have too many buttons to hit today. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So yes, I'm in my red. I didn't know what Johnny was going to do today when it comes to green screening. I thought I would make sure that I popped just in case I was being green screened.
Thanks, Mike. So the question is, how do we determine how good a green screen we have? Is there any rules that you would, or tests that you would throw at people to allow them to understand, at what level their green screen is successful, so they don't, push it too far?
Interesting question, John. When it comes to choosing a green screen material, that would be important. First off, there are many different material that you can actually get online. Again, if you can afford the more expensive material-based screens, that would, chances are, give you the best results because they were specifically made. They're just not green material that have been put into something and go, yeah, it's a green screen. So no, there is a bit of, I would definitely make sure that the green material is at a proper chroma key green as well. There is a specific chroma key green color that will assist you. If you do get a shade off this way or that way, you could potentially, it will affect the chroma keying system depending on its flexibility as well. So
Okay.
definitely when it comes to that, material is most important.
In that case, I'm going to ask you a silly question. You'll explain it better than I. Why are we using green? And why are we using a special green? Why can't we use pink?
Why can't we use pink? Well, pink would be too obvious of an answer of why would I use pink? Because again, it comes down to skin tone, right? So if you are of different skin tones, green is the furthest away from any potential skin tones. Now, that being said, you've got to be careful now too, because it now also comes down to the clothing that you're wearing. So again, if I was wearing a green shirt and I was close to John's chroma key green, then also you would see that all of a sudden where my shirt is would now disappear into whatever background that John would have me in. So you've got to be careful in that regards too. And the best example that we gave, I believe last week, was the weather person in front of a green screen when they're doing the weather. If they were wearing green, guess what? You're going to see the weather all over their body as they're standing there going, the weather forecast is telling me this, right? So you've got to be careful. Why specifically chroma key green? I don't really know the 100% answer to that, John, but the easiest answer I could say is that, first of all, it's close to a prime color, which would be red, green, blue. So there's our green in the middle. So that is first off in my guessing. And the second one would be is that it is such a shade of green that there is not a lot. You really have to force that green in something and somewhere that it actually would actually then become part of the actual background that you're doing. So it's that far off of a green that it's not close to anything that is a prime color green that it will allow you to get the actual proper chroma keying, so the proper green screen effect that you're looking for getting.
That's very good. That is the correct answer. I knew you knew it. Yes, the green is as far away from flesh tones so that it's so different to the flesh tones that it's not going to affect them. It's also a bit of a fake color. I think that's probably how I would phrase it. It's a false color. It's an unnatural green. And therefore, if there are things in real life that are green, it tends to be a bit different to them. And Mike also correctly said the primary colors, red, green, and blue. The alternative, if you have green related colors in your foreground, is to use a blue screen. And it works exactly the same, except it now gives you a blue background. So you can wear green things and then the blue will take it out. And if you wear green and blue things, then you're going to be a nightmare to the production people, and they're not going to like you much at all, because we can't use any red colors, as Mike said. They're all down to flesh tones, and then it will be too difficult to organize. You can have fun with this if you've got your friendly app up, and then you choose the color of your shirt you're wearing, and you can make yourself disappear. And that's what a lot of the magic people do. They dress up people in green screens, and they dress them up into the green screen material. And then if they use a green screen app, those people disappear, and then they can hold balls up in the air, and no one will know that there's anyone holding the ball because the person's in green and is therefore transparent. Sorry, just giving away a bit of magic there. So it's all down to the purity of the background and the power of your system to understand what is the green bits or the blue bits and what isn't. Thank you, Mike, for that. That was fantastic. But I know I said there was green screens, but I got a couple of cheats for you. So the first cheat is got nothing to do with green screen. And I'm sure Mike knows exactly what I'm going to do now. Yes, I'm going to press the little button down here. There is one cheat which is used by many people very successfully. It's used by film companies very successfully nowadays. And you simply put an LCD or an LED background. Now, you can do this at home because I know you've all got televisions. And if you want to be really cheeky, just put a television behind you and make that show the background. It works really well. In fact, it works doubly well because firstly, you've got nothing to replace because the camera is now seeing exactly what you want to show it. You don't get any of these spill issues because there's no green to merge in. And if the background merges with your hair, that doesn't matter because the background is now what you want the background to be. In fact, the only problems that I have with this particular solution is most of us can't afford a video wall big enough to fill the whole background. So if you can't do it behind a 64 or an 80-inch TV, then it gets difficult. And the other thing is you quite often, well, in my experimentation, which I'll show you later, you quite often have to turn the screen down because it could be too bright behind you and look wrong. And the other issue is TV screens are not always so good at reflection. So you need to make sure your lights are organized so you don't get the reflection, which is a real big giveaway. But if you look at the world of cinema, which we're always trying to copy the skills from there, they quite often now have great big walls of LEDs, and they can project their background onto that wall, and it works really well. And Mike knows of even a few, shall we say, semi-celebrities who are regularly called by TV studios to give comments. and they hide behind a TV themselves, don't they, Mike?
They do indeed. Yes, they do. Perfect example is, and again, he doesn't hide it per se. If you follow anyone in the US or in Canada might know Mr. Wonderful, as he loves to call himself. And he always goes on to the major broadcasters all the time, offering his financial suggestions and such, because he is from Shark Tank. If you might know him from Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. And he will, not word of a lie, be in a dress shirt and a tie, but yet he's also in his pajamas, pajama bottoms at all times, for the most part, and sandals. But yet his equipment is that he's on a camera, similar to my setup currently. And instead of my blue background that you see right now with me, it's a TV.
Brilliant.
And basically what he will do, depending on the television, depending on what he's being interviewed for, he will just change the actual picture on the TV from one, so it looks like he's in a boardroom, to looking like, so it's not much different than everybody knows from the W or the T or the Z company, where you would put a background behind you. He's actually doing it professionally because now it's on the TV. And again, as John said, if anybody's been in a Zoom or WebEx or Teams based meeting, and you've seen, as John was mentioning, you look at somebody's hair and all of a sudden you'll see some of the green screen coming through the hair, or the infamous other one that gives it away usually too is if people are wearing headphones, because you will actually see the green through the actual portions of the headphones, because the software is starting to freak out at that particular point, because it goes, I don't think that's green, so that shouldn't be, I shouldn't be actually changing that to being the background. So it causes all kinds of confusion.
Yeah, that's a good example, Mike. Often the simpler software for the lower value products, not insulting you by saying that, you are what you are. They are only looking for an outline. And so if you have a hole, which you tend to get when you put headphones on, you have a hole between the strap and your head. A lot of these software packages, they don't know what to do with that bit in the middle. There's a bit green there, and they don't know. They're not sure. Is it green screen, or is it something I should, does the algorithm work on the outline and therefore the hole confuses it? Do I need to hide this? Do I not? And sometimes the worst thing happens, as Mike says, it does both. So it blurs, and then it really looks bad because it's a software algorithm trying to understand. So the intelligence means that the top level for green screens in the world that I live in, would like to live in, the ultimate has to be that I've hit the wrong button on my slideshow buttons. That's good, isn't it? Try again. Hardware keying. Let's see. The last one is AI background removal. Now, I know I said earlier that Uncle Claude can't do this, and Uncle Claude can't. But if you have a ridiculous amount of money and a ridiculous budget to spend on this technology, there are companies, and I suppose we'll have to name drop VizRT because they're the best example I know of, who can take the background away, whatever it is. So they've taught their AI what a human is. And they can take a soccer example or any sport like that. They can have a table on the pitch side. They can have their speaker, their presenter by that table. And what they do is they start with the scene without anybody there. And they tell the AI, this is what the background looks like. And then they put the presenter back on the screen and they tell the AI that that's the presenter. I don't know if this is exactly how they do it, but I'm pretty sure this is around about what happens in the computer's brain. And so the AI can tell the difference between a presenter and the background. And then you can give it a fake background. I mean, quite often it's like a semi-translucent background to really show off. And then maybe they'll have the logos of all the sponsors. But between the logos of the sponsors, you can still see the real background. And even if the real background is in motion, like it's crowds in the background, and they're all still cheering and moving around, the AI understands because it's had a scene of what's there before and what's there after. And it can then intelligently remove the background and put it as one layer and take what the people are and make that another layer. And then in this application, you can put a layer in front of everybody. So maybe you have a title or something like that. And you can also then put a layer between the two separated parts. Now, what it's decided is the background and what it's decided is the foreground. And it's really very clever. There are hardware switches. And I know this is in the Blackmagic Ultimate. That again, you can give it a background which is not a green screen. And it will then recognize that background shot on its own. And then when you put somebody in front of it, because it knows what the background should look like, and then it finds that a pixel representing the person is in the way, it can then, by subtraction and by logic, can also separate the background and the foreground. And if that sounds way over your head and too technical, just think how much trouble it took me to try and explain it to you. It's way over my head and too technical too. But of course, we do need to understand the levels that we're playing at. Because we'd all like to have that look that they have in a TV studio, but we don't always have the budget of a TV studio. So we can build a similar system as long as we know what the limitations of our tools are. We can work within the bounds of those tools, and then we can make things work better. If you've got a great big screen you're going to have, you know, a view, and your speaker is only going to be in a small part of it, then you only need a green screen around them and then drop them into the larger scene. The smaller they are in the larger scene, the less there is a problem with all the edges. By the way, that's why people with blonde hair and going grey like me have trouble with green screens, because your transparent hair sees the green. But in a small area like that, maybe you have a TV behind you. The TV doesn't need to be for the whole scene. All it needs to do is cut you out. Then you just need to find a way to make it sensible of how you're dropped into the background. And then you have fun. But green screening is great fun. And there's lots of tricks that you can do to confuse people. There are lots of tricks that you can do to draw people's eye away from the fact that it's a green screen. But the first thing you have to do is you have to create a good setup. And as Mike said, you want to make sure your green is really good. You want to make sure that it's not some just green curtain. You want a proper quality green screen, because if the alternative is to spend $20,000, spending $50, $60 on a quality green screen pop-up rather than a 30 green screen pop-up sounds to me like good value compared to having to have a $1,000 machine processing your green screen against a $20,000 machine processing your green screen. It's all a case of fitting it in with your budget. But green screens are a fantastic way of giving you more scenarios that you can work in. So the greatest trick I know is I know somebody who has a green screen. And what they did was they took a picture of their usual studio. And then they would do something, take them off the screen, or to change the screen scene, like Mike's just done to me now. And suddenly, their green screen is now behind them, but with a photo of what the scene was before. And then at the appropriate time, you can then play a video or other content and make things appear through the green screen. You don't have to replace the whole background. If you want to do it the other way around, you can create an object or a picture or a video, process that with green screen tech. So instead of being a rectangle of content, it's now an outline of content. And then you can superimpose that on the screen, bring it in like a green screen object, but it's not you and it's not the background. And now it looks like it's flying or whatever it's doing on the scene. You can watch it going across the screen. This is a trick for green screens. Why? Because it's giving depth. You've got me at one level, my chair, then you've got the background at another level, and then you've got this in the foreground. We've created depth. So I can now bring in green screen objects, or I could green screen behind me and make the illusion work. This chair is really bad for green screens. If I just move it, I'm going to remember which way I'm going to move it now. I'm going to move it that way. I move it that way. No, yes, that's right. If I move it that way, there we are. You can see the light of the light bulbs behind me. Because this chair has holes in it. Now, if you put a green screen behind it, the greens will show through the holes, and most software gets really confused. And then my chair starts appearing and disappearing, and Mike starts sniggering because I'm looking like an amateur. So what did I do as a trick to stop Mike from laughing at my expense? I put a black cloth behind the chair. So I stopped making it transparent so the green wouldn't come through. And I simplified the image, and suddenly it worked properly in green screen so that I could green screen in my comfortable chair, but my comfortable chair wasn't breaking the illusion for me. There are lots of little things that you can do, you see. I'm not asking you to take notes on everything that I'm saying, but what I'm suggesting is that once you know your limit, once you know what you can do and at what point your illusion breaks, you just set those as parameters and you can make green screen really, really convincing. If your computer can't process things quickly, don't wave around your hands to get motion blur, because a green screen will have big trouble with motion blur. That's why people on Z or T, quite often their fingers disappear when they wave them around because they've got a very, very, very low powered machine and there's not enough processing power to really make the video work. That's all there is to it. And yet that's only the start of what there all is to it. It is such a big subject, but it really is transformative. I know. I know that so many people that you're thinking of now don't even have a decent background in real life to start with. And it's true, they don't. But I think about when I first started using green screens about 7, 8 years ago. Gosh, you think how powerful processors are now. 7, 8 years ago, there was no processing power in computers at all. They really couldn't do much with green screens. They were really bad. It didn't matter what software. The processing power of computers and graphics was so bad, even at lower resolutions, that green screens didn't work very well. And I think Mike's right that there's a lot more quality green screen products out there that you can use. There's certainly a lot more better lighting systems that are used as well. Because again, you want to light your green screen. You want it to look as a decent color the whole way to simplify the object. And then it works. Mike, have we got any comments or any questions or anything in the chat or on the various platforms that we can refer to?
Yes, we do actually, John. We actually have a question from Tony.
Oh,
He's
hi,
our,
Tony.
he's our resident person that you visit us every Friday on Production Professionals Power Hour. There we go. I got to get the PPs right. Tony's asking John for us to talk more about lighting, which we can get into because that is very important, especially for green screen.
Definitely.
That you should have dedicated lights. We'll get into that momentarily. And he's also talking about, can you touch briefly on, and Tony wants us to get really tech. So hold on to this one, Johnny. Briefly on 8-bit versus 10-bit and 420 versus 422. So again, we're talking video standards when it comes to the 8-bit and 10-bit. But let's talk about lighting first.
Okay. So I think I can probably do a simple example.
All right. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
So when it comes to lighting, you've got two problems. One is, how do you light the green screen? And the reason Mike wants me to light the green screen is because if I just use the lights that are on me, then the chance of me casting a shadow onto the background is really high. Now, I've got two great big lights, so I am pretty good here at eliminating shadows, but it's still going to give a shadow effect on my green screen. So if I'm doing this properly and I want it to be convincing, it is better to do lighting for you and then lighting for the background.
Right. And that is the biggest problem that I see, John, all the time when I see people using green screens.
Yep. And there's also a third way, because if you want to improve the risk of spill, and it's still light here, and I've got a fan light, a louvre above me. So I've got daylight coming in above me. So I'm not sure if this will show up much, but I'm going to try. I think, yes, it does. I think that does show up a bit more. So what I have is I have a spotlight above me, but it's got a wide angle. It's a spotlight, but it's got quite a wide angle, but the wide angle is around me. So you can see now that the top of my chair is now more illuminated. My head is more illuminated. And if I was in a green screen world, and actually, even if I'm not, that lighting, which is coming from behind and above, helps me, as we would say, I think the term is pop from the background. So it gives you a much more clearly defined outline of me to my background.
Yeah.
So there's
and again,
things.
what John is, in the production world, we will actually call this a hair light, is basically what John is mimicking right now. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good, because it's because the idea is it lightens your hair, which is why I didn't have it on because I didn't need it, because there was enough light coming through the daylight above me. But there are three. So there's three different lights. There's the lighting on you, there's the lighting on the background, and then there's the trick to make you come off the background and get seen by putting a light behind. And you need to tune all three of those together to make it all work. Because the stronger lights are on you, the bigger the problem that can kick back to the green screen. So they need to be balanced. You want light on you to be enough to show you, but hopefully not ruin the background. And it doesn't matter, actually. This is not just a green screen issue. This is an issue really for any scene, really, Mike, isn't it? Because again, you don't want your lights to be changing what's seen in the background, and so the background needs to be lit in its own way, which is why we like doing these tricks of putting lamps on, because that's a way of producing light into the background and differentiating the background. And then the hair light is making me and my chair more visibly away from the background. And you can see when I raise my hands, it's more visible now that my hands are there than before. So that's the easiest question asked.
Yeah.
Now
And I just wanted to add to this too, Johnny. So basically what is normally done in studios. So when you do see that person, even when I was talking about Mr. Wonderful in his setup, he will, there is a little bit of lighting that he'll actually give to the television, but not much. And the reason that it's not much, because you have to be careful, because depending on the television itself, the best television, yes, and this gets a little more expensive and gets a little more professional, is that you want to have anti-glare on the actual TVs as well. What does that do? Quickly. So basically the anti-glare would be an equivalent of sunlight hitting the TV, and you're watching TV, and all of a sudden you're in a room where the TV will face a window, and you've got the curtain open and the sun's coming in, and you actually hit the sun actually hits the TV, and you want to be able to still watch TV, but you still want to have the windows open so you can actually have the sunlight come in. Well, you need an anti-glare television to get that proper picture. Same situation here, is that you want to be able to light up the actual TV, but you're not needing to light it up per se. You want to make sure that there are no shadows being cast, as John mentioned as well, no shadows being cast from your main lights onto the TV now, because that will become evident as well. So you want to make sure that even though you don't need as bright of lights on the TV or LED wall or anything like that, you still want to make sure that it still pops, right? And this is what Johnny's talking about when it comes to hair lights and such. Like right now, I don't have a hair light on me. We can see the difference between when John has his on and his off, that his top of his head is now popping out more of the background than mine is per se, because of my black hair. It is melding in a little bit into the background because of my blue has a little bit of black in it.
So it's not just my head. You can see my shoulders and the top of the chair are also getting caught by it.
Yeah, and that's also very important too. And that's that is proper professional lighting. Should this be done in studios? Yes. Should this be done live for live events? Yes, you should be doing that as well. Perfect example is, but you'll say, Mike, that means I have to light up the whole stage from the back. Yes, been there, done that, everybody. But again, if you're lucky enough that the people are not people that walk around very much, then great. But if they do, then yes, you'll have to light up the whole stage, and that is not abnormal. If you go to a concert as such, they are forever lighting the person from the back as well as the front. So that's how they pop from the stage as well. So again, if you can add it to your rig of doing productions live to make sure that you actually have lighting on the podium, you have a hair light going towards the podium as well, then that will definitely have that person pop when they're at the podium speaking. I've done that many times. But John, do we want to get into the 8-bit and 10-bit, or we?
Thank you for your wonderful dissertation, because I've been able to work out a tactical answer to it.
Excellent.
So I'm going to ignore what he asked me, and I'm going to give you an answer which answers it in a different way. When it comes to resolution, frame rates, and 422s, which effectively is the color mix, the word you've got to watch out for is compression. So like you can have a JPEG image, which is a compressed image, and what's happened is that the algorithm has looked at all the pixels and has taken a whole load of pixels and do an average of the pixels to reduce the number of pixels that are needed to be colored and reduce the resolution without trying to keep the quality. That also happens in videos as well. All the products. Yep, I'm pretty sure all the products out the box, whether it's Zoom, Teams, WebEx, or anybody else, YouTube, they're all playing the game of compressing the video as it flies around. Now, Mike's cameras are fantastic. He'll want me to make sure that you know that. And a professional camera can produce a uncompressed video signal. And quite frankly, if you can get an uncompressed video signal before you green screen process, this is another way to make it easier for your green screen software, hardware, whatever it is, to make a good, clean, green screened version of your images, your video. Once you start having these video formats that compress, you've got the problem again where the little green pixel has been merged in with all the other pixels which are close to your head or your shoulders or whatever, and it gets harder for the poor little piece of hardware, software, whatever you're using, to differentiate and make a clean line between the edge of you and the green. So by not answering the question, I hope I've answered the question. If you can get uncompressed video out of your sources while you get to the green screen is so much easier. If you then send it out as a compressed standard after that, once you've put the green screen and the background together, at that point, then it doesn't matter. But you want to have as pure, shall we say, as pure an image as you can from the camera to the place where you process the green screen. And only then can you start using compression, because now you've done the fiddly bit getting the green screen. So the more higher quality that is, the better, except going from HD to 4K. Because if you go up in resolution, you're then giving the computer more pixels to process, and that may completely undermine the whole theory of what I've given you before. So you want a quality image, but don't overload your apparatus with high frame rates and high resolution, because then it's just got many more pixels. If you're going to go out as 25, 30 frames a second to YouTube, there's no point in giving your poor green screen as 4K 60 image to process when you're not even going to use half that data. Well, not even half that data. It's like an eighth of that data, isn't it? When you get sent out. Is that about right, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the easiest way of thinking about it too, Johnny. And on top of that too, is that, as I've told many people that I work with, practice, practice, practice. What does that mean? Is that make sure that you know the limitations of your gear. Doesn't matter what that piece of gear is, you have to know your gear inside out and backwards. Do not assume that the piece of gear will do something when you get to that event or get to that studio and all of a sudden set it up and all of a sudden, oh, it doesn't do that. Too late. Too late. You got to make sure that you have everything into the situation. So John is perfectly right when it comes to versus the, when it comes to the different color spaces and the 8-bit versus 10-bit, if your main machine, let's use that term loosely, because it could be hardware, it could be a PC, it could be a Mac, it could be whatever. The limitations of that piece of gear is the limitations that you have and the limitations that you've bought. If you need better limitations, then you need to buy better gear. You can't get a low-end piece of gear to do high-end equipment, do high-end things. Perfect example, like John was saying. Can I get a 720p 60 machine to do the same as a 4K 60 machine will do? No. No. This is why certain machines only have the maximum capabilities that are built into the specifications of that gear. Again, let's call that a machine. So an example would be if you're running a Mac Mini. The Mac Mini, depending on the processor that you have in that Mac Mini, will be your limitation of that Mac Mini. Let's take it to a PC. Again, we are running into this now that you actually may have on the Windows-based situation side, you may actually have the situation of, okay, I've got a really fast processor that has a lot of, and John knows where I'm going with this, a lot of cores and a lot of, CPU capabilities, but yet there may be certain programs, W, T, or Z, that might be looking for specific processors and actually not looking at the potential of, do you really have the enough horsepower to do what you need to do? But yet they're looking for specific processors and will disable certain functionality one way or another because they are not finding it, right? So you've got to make sure that, as John was saying, if you have multiple feeds coming at a 4K 60, you've got to make sure that that machine can handle every single one of them all the time, running, that the frame rate is able to keep up with it, because all you need is one of those inputs now to start losing its frame rate and all of a sudden starting doing for your production to look from very professional to very amateur.
Yeah.
It becomes very, very quickly where you can tell that they haven't taken everything into consideration in one form or another. But yes, just to wrap this up, when it comes to lighting, main lighting on yourself, main lighting on your background, and that in itself, and of course, if you can get an actual hair light as well, that is the ultimate setup.
Thanks, Mike. So preparation, practice, understand your limitation. And if you want to do something flashy in green screen and you don't have the available horsepower, please don't forget, pre-record that bit. You can give it to a machine that doesn't have the power to do it in real time, but will be able to do it if you just leave it running for 2 hours to process it all slowly in unreal time, and then just add it on as a video. That is the best hack of all, the easiest hack of all. Then you just have to work out a way of merging it in. And, just to warn you, one day I'm going to be abducted by aliens. Don't know when. One day I've had a message. They're coming to get me. That war may not survive. And for those that wanted to know how we did all this jiggery pokery today, we have been using 2 tools today just to show off. So Mike's been moving us around in production studio. So we've got that layer of video manipulation with scenes and things. And I am also using a super source with my ATEM. Just hit the button. That's how I was showing my presentation, which of course has stopped now because I've ended it. If I come back a couple of slides, there it is. So that's how we've played around, because I've noticed in the chat there's been some comments about that. That's how we've been playing around today. So we've been using effectively 2 video mixers within one system as we can.
Because we can. And I was actually quizzing the viewers, John, to make sure that they figured out, when are we using Production Studio? When are we using something else? And then John just let you know what he was using something else.
That's the way we were doing it. So again, that also applies to green screen. Don't have to run everything in a window and the whole screen is green screen and then you're in it. You can use these video manipulation tools to only use the green screen for a certain part of the screen. And of course, that usually means that the edge case area has been shrunk into a box, so it won't be as obvious either. So obviously having a hand up really close to the screen and having to green screen around it is a lot harder to hide than if the hand is up here, because you've got the pixel problem and all the pixels in line. But that's what we have for today. That is our overview of green screens, which when we did the subject before, we didn't really go into the detail. So this is the detailed overview. And yes, I have an armful of shows that I'm trying to work on. And therefore I've got an armful of different tools that I'm going to use for those different things. And I will be dripping into the YouTube channel some videos, and we may even highlight some of them on some of the shows as well. Well, I expect we'll use them on some of the shows as well, but we will drip various green screen tricks and techniques that we have. And yeah, for those high-end ones we can't do, if somebody would like to just lend us some equipment for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days would be enough for us to demonstrate how it works. We'll see if we can persuade a manufacturer or two to help us with that. But otherwise, we'll do as we always do. We'll just show you what we have and how we use it and hope that it's useful for you in your production. But as Mike said, a lot of these lighting and setup issues, they're just the same, whether you're doing a live production or a virtual production with fake backgrounds. The issues are actually still the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way that you manipulate the content afterward. And don't forget that almost every live show nowadays needs a recorded version for people to watch later or to take snippets from, etc. So this tech can work at multiple levels. And I've even seen people use green screens in a live production because they might bring a presenter on from somewhere else via green screen, so that they can then join the background video wall or whatever and be suitable, right word there, suitable to the venue. Because if you're bringing in a remote person, you don't really want their bed in the background because they're in a hotel, or even an office environment when they're obviously in an office or in a fake office. It's much better to bring them in the context of the event with the background that they have suitable to the branding of the event that they're in. The green screen can be used and is used in all types of events. Thank you very much for listening and for the comments. Thank you, Mike, for helping everything else in the background and throwing in your expert knowledge to fill in the gaps for me. And that's all I have to say today for the production. So you know I can't do it unless you say it that way. Production professionals. Been great to be with you. And there we are. We finished in time for you to watch the footy tonight. You don't have to wait until England play on Monday. We've got it all wrapped up in one evening. I'd just like to say congratulations to the home nations for getting to the lockout stages. That keeps the audiences in. So that's brilliant. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Look forward to seeing you on one of our next shows. And I'll leave it to Mike to finish up as the DJ of the hour. Well, thank you for the love hearts on the system, by the way. Over to you, Mike, for the closing credit.
Okay. Thanks, John. And don't forget, everyone, to like and subscribe to our channel to let YouTube know how much you love our content. And of course, that's very important. So make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget, we're here every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on the Production Professionals Power Hour. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. And for those in the U.S., happy early Independence Day, because that is tomorrow. And of course, for our Canadian viewers, hope you had a great Canada Day this week, and hopefully you did not get drenched too much because it was quite a stormy July 1st. And now we're dealing with all the heat here in Canada. But on that note, take care.
But don't worry.
Yes.
If you don't worry, America, because we discovered a copy of your Declaration of Independence, which we stole from a ship the year of your independence. So if you haven't got a copy, we've got one in the UK for you. So you need to have a look at it. Just come over here. It's written down. Original copy.
There you go. Look at that. Our friends in the UK being nice to our friends in the US. And we're getting all kinds of laughy emojis. Thank you, everyone that watched us live. And of course, if you have any comments for us after the show, do leave the comments in the comments section, and we will get back to you with some answers. If not, bring your questions next time for the Production Professionals Power Hour. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Lights go up and the cameras roll. Voices clear and we're in control. Screens are live and the signals flow. Welcome to the place where the pros all go. Talking gear and the tools we trust. What works well and what gathers dust. From the studio floor to the online stage, we bring the knowledge page by page. Live or hybrid, in room or remote. Every shot and every note. Better system, sharper sound. This is where the best is found. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid online too. Sharing what the experts do. Hardware, software, tested live. Helping every production thrive. Step inside the futures now. Welcome to the Power Hour. Switches, streaming, mics and light, making every moment land just right. Guests and makers join the conversation, bringing insight, crafting innovation. From the first idea to the final frame, every tool can change the game. Manufacturers, pros and brands, sharing real solutions firsthand. Live or hybrid, room or remote. Every cue and every note. Smarter workflow, stronger shows. That's the way the power grows. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid online too. Sharing what the experts do. Hardware, software, tested live. Helping every production thrive. Step inside the futures now. Welcome to the Power Hour. When the pressure's on, we raise the game. New ideas and trusted names. Every week another view. Fresh tech, fresh talk. Something new.